Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you are not. I am EDJ. If you hear barking, I apologize, my pug outside is going wild. So yeah, we are now in part 2 of Belisarius's, series by, Epic History TV. I'm sorry, I blanked out for a second. So last time we saw some of his early success, his rise, and some of his skill in combat, and now we're kind of turning our sights to the Justinian's great ambition, which was the restoration of Rome. And I was looking at the map of the Byzantine Empire under Justinian, and yeah, it was, to my knowledge, the greatest extent that the Eastern Roman Empire came, and it came really close to restoring a lot of Rome. Granted, Gaul, Britain, and a lot of Hispania were still unconquered, but he came closer than anyone else to the restoration of Rome, after the fall of the Western Front. I mean, the Byzantines are Rome, but the restoration of a complete Rome, not just the eastern portion. So yeah, overall, great ambition, and we kind of owe all of that to Belisarius. So I believe we're gonna get to, the reconquest of Rome. We're gonna see more Belisarius's genius in combat, and I'm wondering if he's gonna be a new favorite of mine after this is all said and done. But the only way to find that out is by watching, so let's get to it, shall we? So if you want to watch the original video without me talking or pausing the talk, I always put the link in the description down below. With that said, let's get to it. Let's watch Belisarius, the Conquest of the Vandals.
533 AD. A major Eastern Roman expeditionary force, 17,000 soldiers, nearly 600 ships, prepares to leave Constantinople. Its objective is the Kingdom of the Vandals in North Africa. These were once some of the wealthiest provinces in the Roman Empire, until they were lost to the barbarians, with catastrophic consequences. Now, a century later, the Romans are returning. Emperor Justinian intends to liberate the people of North Africa from barbarian tyranny and the perils of Christian heresy. He entrusts this mission to Flavius Belisarius, the victor of Dara, who's just saved the regime by crushing internal revolt. Now he will lead Eastern Roman forces in the Emperor's campaign to reclaim the West.
Heck yeah, let's do this!
When the Western Roman Empire was overrun by barbarians in the 5th century, the Vandals emerged as perhaps the most enterprising of Rome's enemies. From Central Europe, they marched, killed and looted their way through Roman territory into Spain, and in 429 crossed into North Africa under the leadership of King Gesaric.
Wow.
There he founded a kingdom and took up piracy with skill and enthusiasm. In 455, Gesaric sacked Rome itself. 75 years later, Eastern Romans and Vandals had learned to tolerate each other. Emperor Justinian's relations with the Vandal king Hilderic were in fact extremely cordial. The two men exchanged gifts, and though Justinian regretted that Hilderic was an Arian heretic, he was pleased that he did at least allow Orthodox Christians in his realm to live in peace. Then, in 530 AD, there was a coup in the Kingdom of the Vandals. Gelimer, Hilderic's cousin and heir, seized power and imprisoned the ex-king. Unlike his hapless predecessor, humiliated in war by the Berber tribes, Gelimer was a proven warrior, and cunning to boot. When Justinian scolded Gelimer as a usurper, the new Vandal king warned the emperor to mind his own affairs, then, for good measure, blinded one of Hilderic's nephews. 3 years pass. Justinian makes peace with the Sassanid Empire and survives the Nika riots. Now he decides it's time to teach Gelimer a lesson. Imperial propaganda and the historian Procopius will later portray Justinian's war on the Vandals as part of a long-held plan to reconquer the Western Empire, for the sake of true belief in God and the liberty of our subjects. Modern historians are more skeptical. Justinian needs a victory to bolster his regime. Gelimer's actions have provided just provocation, and the recovery of North Africa's wealthy estates will bring obvious benefits. Perhaps self-interest, opportunism, and a sense of divine imperial mission all play a part in his decision to go to war.
Yeah, I think all those do certainly play a part, and I do believe Justinian did want to kind of restore a lot of Rome's glory. But yeah, there's also a lot to gain, right? From war, like popularity, wealth, you know? And I guess you could view it as the Romans taking back what was theirs and all that. So yeah. Alright.
Many try to dissuade the emperor. His senior advisor, John of Cappadocia, warns of the hazards and cost of a long-range, seaborne operation. His generals are haunted by the fate of the last Roman expedition to North Africa, a huge fleet destroyed by Vandal fireships off Cape Bon. Justinian is not deterred. He orders the fleet and army to assemble at Constantinople. Belisarius, restored to the rank of Magister Militum per Orientem, General of the East, is given complete authority over the campaign.
Very good start.
His force includes 10,000 infantry under the command of John of Dyrrachium, 5,000 cavalry divided between federati and regular Roman units, as well as 600 Hun mercenaries, 400 Heruli mercenaries, and Belisarius' own Bucellari, probably around 1,000 men. An old comrade, John of Armenia, will be his second in command. Solomon, a eunuch, his chief staff officer. It is not a large army, but most are hardened veterans from the wars in the East.
That is what I was thinking. Like, I know that, you know, as time went on, the Romans had a hard time fielding large armies, because it is a contrast to early Rome, right? Where you could like wipe out an army and they would just grow a new one seemingly out of nowhere. And for a lot of Rome's history, yeah, they just seem to have an endless supply of manpower. But you do see, like, as Rome progresses until like the fall of the western half and whatnot, like, yeah, they're not able to field like large armies anymore, seemingly. And you know, obviously having to be reliant on mercenaries here. You know, they needed mercenaries, which like early Rome never really needed, and it goes to show you that, yeah, there was like this weird, I don't know the specifics as to why, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to speculate, but, you know, it is like, yeah, I was thinking like, this is a pretty, there's a 17,000, gosh darn it, give me a second. Yeah, sorry, I got a call from my grandma. I need to go pick up my dog right now, so I'm just gonna pause this video right here. Alright, and I'm back. Let's get to it. Like 3 hours after I stopped the video, I'm back. Alright, so let's see.
Veterans from the wars in the East. Belisarius will also be accompanied by his wife, Antonina, an arrangement that doubtless provokes comments from conservative Romans, but seems to have been generally accepted. She will prove an insightful and effective ally to her husband, as well as a valuable agent to her patron and friend, Empress Theodora.
Oh, that's cool. His wife's coming with him to this invasion, this war, so yeah, pretty cool. We like to see women in war, you know? Alright.
The fleet set sail in June 533. Belisarius believes that much will depend on the discipline of his men. But before they've even cleared the Hellespont, 2 Hun mercenaries drunkenly murder a comrade. Belisarius has them hanged in full view of the fleet. Then he addresses
Yeah, that sets a message, alright, for sure.
the army. If I were speaking to men going to war for the first time, I might struggle to persuade you that justice can be our greatest ally in obtaining victory. For those who don't understand the fortunes of war, think the outcome depends on strength alone. But you, I think, know that although it's men who do the fighting, it is God who judges the contest.
Amen.
This is why Belisarius warns them he will never turn a blind eye to their crimes. He concludes,
Your child needs
Wow.
these 3 key factors to get into an Ivy League or top 25.
I shall not consider any one of you my comrade, no matter how fearsome he is to the enemy, unless his hands are clean.
Already the most morally virtuous Roman we've seen. Well, I know, I joke around, guys. I know when we're watching, like, Julius Caesar or, like, further back in time, different society. This is a pretty much post-Christian, Rome, so obviously its values are much closer to ours now, than pagan Rome, so, you know. But yeah, already probably the most, of all the people we've covered, the most, you could call him upstanding, at least from this speech. I don't know everything he does, so that might age wrongly. So I guess we'll just see, but man, that motivated me. I'd fight for him. I'm like, heck yeah, bro. I'd probably be like the first one killed. I'd charge, get an arrow in my eye, instant death. That's what I'd imagine. What would happen if I were there?
The fleet continues its voyage, making stops to pick up supplies and additional troops. Along the way, 500 men die from eating moldy bread, which
You know, I just want to say that as of late, I've kind of been really a fan of like studying the history of Greece and like Greek culture. It started, you know, just kind of looking at Greek mythology. Like every once in a few years, I kind of go back to Greek mythology and kind of look through it again. But it kind of turned into like and since I started, you know, covering history on this channel, I've like developed a weird fascination for Greece and like, you know, battle formations. And I already told you, like, the phalanx is like my favorite military, you know, like formation maneuver, you know. So yeah, it's funny because of just how divided Greece was, you know, very independent with its city-states. And it's like, it took Rome to like unify them for like over 1,000 years? Greece was under Rome? Like, that's a long time. Like, it is wild, you know. But yeah, Rome really, really kept them unified for a long time. I don't know. I'm looking forward to eventually, I'm planning on covering Alexander the Great from Kings and Generals, so I'm looking forward to studying more Greece on this channel.
copious blames on cost-cutting measures by the stingy John of Cappadocia. In Sicily, Belisarius receives fresh supplies from the Goths. There, as he ponders his next move, he receives stunning news. Not only are the Vandals completely unaware of his expedition, but Gelimer has sent his brother Zazo with most of the Vandal fleet and 5,000 troops to quell a revolt in Sardinia. Belisarius might have been tempted to land in Tripolitania, where Romanized locals are already in revolt against the Vandals. But reassured by the absence of the Vandal fleet, he decides to land in the Vandal heartland, within striking distance of their capital, Carthage. The landing is unopposed. But Belisarius is furious when some of his men steal from the locals. He has them punished, then speaks once more to the troops.
Again, very, at least portraying himself as morally right. You know, no murder, no, like, thievery. Overall wants a very, yeah, you know, it comes across really morally right, which is, like, different, because, you know, we've been studying ancienter times in Rome and the world where, you know, you could argue a lot about their morality, but, you know, Belisarius is, like, the first guy I've heard talk about all this stuff, aside from all the other guys we covered, so it's definitely different, but I'm all for it. I'm like, heck yeah, you know, Belisarius.
The Libyans, being Romans from of old, are unfaithful and hostile to the Vandals. Now your lack of self-control has made the opposite true. He warns them that lawlessness will lose them the support of the people and lead only to defeat and death. But with good behavior, you will have God on your side. The Libyan people will support you, and the Vandals will be at your mercy.
Very pragmatic way of looking at it. Obviously, there's a sense of, hey, we need these people. But yeah, overall, framing himself as a very morally, you know, by Christian standards. Well, I mean, this is pretty common, you know, decency, no looting. I think we can all agree on that, right? So, yeah.
Belisarius orders some of his most trusted men to infiltrate a nearby town, Selectum, to see if the people will come over to the Roman side. The soldiers enter discreetly at dawn. They inform local elders that Belisarius has come to overthrow Gelimer the usurper and restore their freedom. The townsmen agree to let the army into the city and open the market to them. Belisarius is gracious and generous to the Libyans. Crucially, his men behave well. They pay for supplies and win the trust of the locals. Procopius, an eyewitness, records that from henceforth, the campaign is like moving through their own country. Belisarius begins his advance along the coastal road to Carthage.
Yeah, see, Belisarius, I like the way you're thinking, bro. You handled this very well, portraying yourself as the ultimate good guy compared to the Vandals, winning the people over. Helps that, you know, Romanized, yeah, but still, I like this, very, like, pragmatic even in this, you know. I don't know about the man personally, I don't know everything he's done, so it's hard to, I don't know if I have a full grasp on his personality or his complete beliefs, you know, so I'm kind of like being a little hesitant because I'm not sure if I'm gonna like praise him as morally righteous and then he's gonna do something super shady later. But so far I'm really liking the dude, you know.
Carthage. He knows Gelimer is somewhere inland and could strike from almost any direction. So he orders John of Armenia, his second in command, to take 300 Bucellari and scout 2 miles ahead of the main army. Belisarius himself commands a strong rear guard. The Huns are posted as a flank guard, 2 miles inland. Their sea flank is protected by the fleet, keeping pace with the army's advance. The army marches about 10 miles each day, then fortifies a camp at night. When Gelimer receives news of the Roman landing, he sends a message to his brother Amatus in Carthage. First, he is to execute Hilderic and the other prisoners. Then he is to gather all his men and join Gelimer at Addecimum, where they will ambush and destroy Belisarius's army. Addecimum, 10 miles south of Carthage. Here, the coastal road passes through a narrow gap between a salt marsh and the sea. Gelimer knows Belisarius will have to pass this way, and that the headland of Cape Bon will separate him from his fleet. Amatus is to hold the road to Carthage, and when the Romans are fully engaged, Gelimer and his nephew Gibamund will fall on their flank and rear. Belisarius and his army approach. Roman patrol.
Alright, that seems like a pretty somewhat solid plan. Let's see how Belisarius counters that. He's assuming, you know, better information or scouting prevailed, he might see it coming, or I don't know. I'm actually really interested to see this.
Patrols report skirmishes with the Vandals. Gelimer is close. A few miles short of Ad Decimum, Belisarius gives the order to make camp, and sends John's vanguard ahead to scout the road. At Ad Decimum, they find Amatus with just a handful of troops. He has arrived too early. The rest of his men are still strung out on the road to Carthage.
Dang it.
Hey Meta, take a photo.
John and
Okay, so that seems to be their undoing. They showed up too early, and they weren't all together. Okay. Alright.
the Bucalari charge. Amatus fights bravely, killing 12 men before he is cut down. The Vandals' survivors flee back towards Carthage, with John and his men in pursuit. Groups of Vandals coming up the road see the fleeing horsemen. They think the whole Roman army must be headed their way. They panic and join the rout. John and his men slay all the Vandals they can catch.
Dude, dang. John went for it, bro. Alright, good job, bro. He's the second in command, so... Alright, good. Belisarius has competent people under him. I was kind of wondering if he had any, like, how the people under him would do, because I've heard a lot about Belisarius. Considered a great commander, but you know, great commanders usually... It helps to have very competent people under you, right? So yeah, so far good. I'm a little worried that I say this and then something bad's about to happen. Watch John just get killed right there. Just joking. I guess this is kind of interesting because I really don't know so much about this era, so I'm very blind as to what's going on. So yeah, I kind of like this. It's interesting.
Meanwhile, on the edge of the Salt Lake, the Huns have encountered Gibamund's column. According to a Hun custom, a single warrior rides forward to meet the enemy. This is the first time Gibamund and his men have faced Huns, but they know their fearsome reputation. They are unnerved by the lone horseman and suspect a trap. When the Huns charge, the Vandals quickly turn and flee.
Oh wow.
Gibamund is one of those killed in the rout.
Wait, so according to Hun custom, the single guy showed up, right? After 600 Huns, and then they all charged, and they just ran? Even though they had the numerical superiority? Well, you just mentioned, Edwin, that they have a fearsome reputation and probably helped them a lot. Wait, let me look at that again. I apologize.
But Huns. But this is the first time Gibamund and his men have faced Huns. But they know their fearsome reputation. They are unnerved by the lone horseman and suspect a trap.
Ah, okay.
When the Huns charge, the Vandals quickly turn and flee.
Oh, I see. Okay, I get it now. Sorry, I just needed to look at that again.
Gibamund is one of those killed in the rout. Gelimer is advancing between low hills that block his view of both Belisarius' camp and the fate of Gibamund. Belisarius is also unaware that battle has been joined, but sends his Federati cavalry forward, expecting some skirmishing with the Vandals. When his cavalry reach Ad Decimum, they see signs of fighting and bodies. Then, several thousand Vandal horsemen appear behind them. The Federati commanders have no idea whether to advance or retreat. After a brief clash, the entire force retreats back towards the Roman camp. Gelimer is now in position to deal Belisarius a serious blow. If he heads north, he can trap and destroy John's isolated vanguard. If he moves south, he can hit the Roman cavalry while it's still confused and disordered. Instead, Gelimer discovers the body of his brother, Amatus, and is overcome with grief.
So overcome with grief, I'm assuming he doesn't capitalize on either... Again, I'm just speculating. I'm assuming he's not going to capitalize on either advantage of attack due to seeing your own brother dead. I don't have any siblings, but I think I would be pretty moved too if I saw, like, a sibling of mine got murdered, right?
As their king oversees his brother's burial, his perplexed troops look on and do nothing. Belisarius is given a crucial breathing space. He rallies his cavalry, reorganizes them, and leads them forward. The Roman cavalry fall on the Vandals with devastating force. The enemy are scattered. Gelimer and the survivors fly west. The road to Carthage is open.
Wow.
And it fell to...
Man, that helped. That was good. Like, they got really lucky there, you know, with... You know, they were given that brief, you know, breathing space that Gelimer didn't jump and attack anyone. So, okay, that worked out. Also, John also handled it. The Huns handled it. Okay, just overall, a very decisive victory on all fronts, huh?
Belisarius that day to win more fame than any other man of his time, or indeed any of the men of olden times. Belisarius, wary of ambush, waits till dawn the next day before making his triumphal entry into Carthage. Once more, his troops behave well. The citizens of Carthage are respected. This peaceful occupation of such a wealthy city in such times is remarkable. Belisarius sits on Gelimer's...
Okay, that's kind of baller, though. He just sits on this dude's throne. Alright, Belisarius, I like that. But again, his policy of being very friendly instead of... You know, because we're kind of used to, at this point, just like, oh, we've taken the city, time to sack them and rob them blind. So this restraint seems to be working really well for him, this policy of, you know, being restrained and, you know, overall not treating cities badly. So, yeah, this approach is working very well for him. I like that.
Throne and eats the lunch that had been prepared for him.
Oh man, dude. What a Chad. It kind of reminds me of, like, there was this, I was looking during, like, the war of, was it 1812? It was the second conflict between America and the UK. You know, the one where the UK burns down the White House. And then I think when James Madison was the president, fled Washington when his wife had prepared, like, a meal. And so when the British soldiers came in, they just ate it. Like, wow. They're just saying that's escaping me at the moment, but that's baller. He's won.
He attends to the requests and pleas of local citizens. But the Vandals aren't beaten yet. Belisarius receives news, intended for Gelimer, that Zazo has put down the Sardinian revolt and is returning with 5,000 men. Reinforced, Gelimer advances on Carthage.
Explaining complex topics can be challenging. Highlight the text you want to simplify and let Grammarly
Belisarius leads out his army to face him at Tricomarum. The Roman cavalry camps near a small brook, where the Vandals catch them off guard, deploying for battle while the Romans are still making lunch. But again, Gelimer fails to exploit an advantage. He does nothing as the Romans deploy, and their infantry, which had fallen behind...
Alright, so Gelimer's biggest problem I'm seeing is that he doesn't attack when he probably should be. He's giving them too much breathing room to reorganize. He could have benefited, right, from being more aggressive at certain points. To be fair, the first time he saw his brother dead, I mean, that's pretty forgivable, right? Seeing a relative die, forgivable, like, you know, grief and whatnot. So, can't hold that against him. I'd probably be the exact same way too, you know? But here it seems like, yeah, he just let them... Well, we're not done yet, but he seems to be letting them deploy. This is a mistake.
On the march from Carthage, gets into position. It's the Romans who attack first, when John of Armenia leads the Bucellari forward against the Vandal centre. Twice he is repulsed, but the third attack is made with greater force. Zazo himself is killed within sight of Gelimer. Belisarius orders the rest of his army forward. The Vandals flee, leaving behind 800 dead. The Romans have lost just 50 men.
Oh my goodness.
The Vandals take refuge in their camp.
Dude, that's insane. Wow, they are fighting. You know, I was like talking about like the low numbers. I was like, only 17,000? Then again, right now, you know, after watching Julius Caesar and the Romans casually always fielding, you know, 60 or 80,000 men, I was like, oh, 17 seems low, but forget quantity. Belisarius has quality, you know? And wow, dang, that's a massacre, dude.
Which contains all their baggage and their families. But when Belisarius brings up his infantry to begin the assault, King Gelimer flees. The fight is entirely one-sided. Panic soon engulfs the Vandal camp as everyone tries to escape. The Romans kill the men, enslave the women and children, and plunder all they can find. Belisarius cannot restore discipline until the morning.
Yeah.
Gelimer flees.
It's that battle frenzy, right? Like, we kind of see it, like, in the heat of the battle, in the moment, sometimes commanders will just lose control and the soldiers will just indulge. So yeah, but Belisarius seems to be very strict on discipline and restraint. And as we've seen, this approach, I'm sorry I keep highlighting it, it's just because, like I said, we're covering Julius Caesar, Hannibal, so many of these people, yet, you know, we haven't heard any of them practice as much restraint, so I'm, like, shocked by it. I'm like, whoa, okay, whoa, dang. You know? Well, I guess Napoleon, but yeah, it's been a while since we watched Epic History's Napoleon here, so I kind of forgot some stuff. But yeah, overall, I like Belisarius' conduct is what I'm getting at, you know?
Ease towards the mountains. Belisarius sends John in pursuit with 200 horsemen, but 5 days later, John is accidentally killed by one of his own men.
Wait, what?
Belisarius grieves at the death of his old comrade.
Oh wait, accidentally.
He sends...
Okay, he said accidentally, did he?
Belisarius save the women and children, and plunder all they can find. Belisarius cannot restore discipline until the morning. Gelimer flees towards the mountains. Belisarius sends John in pursuit with 200 horsemen, but 5 days later, John is accidentally killed by one of his own men.
I thought he was straight up murdered. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh, but poor John, man. You were doing so well, man. Dang it. That sucks.
Belisarius grieves at the death of his old comrade. He sends Pharas and his Heruli to take over the pursuit of Gelimer. The Vandal king takes refuge with the Berber tribes. 3 months later, hunger and the promise of comfort and clemency persuades him to surrender. Meanwhile, Belisarius sends one of his officers to Sardinia with the head of the king's brother Zazo. The island quickly submits to Roman rule, as too does Corsica. From Carthage, detachments and emissaries travel east and west as North Africa rejoins the Roman Empire.
Wow. Alright, we're getting the band back together, baby. Look at that. Look at that beautiful, almost whole Rome again. Oh man, I love that. Belisarius, man. Like I said, I didn't know what to make of him. I'm not that well versed. I never really took the time to completely research him in depth on my own. But I am impressed. I really like the guy. I like, you know, his discipline. I like the way he's approaching things. Very just pragmatic. And look at that. Just all of that back. That brings joy to my heart to see Rome having a great comeback, right?
Settlements and outposts still suffer Berber raids, but Belisarius delegates this war to his able staff officer Solomon. He sails for Constantinople with his prisoners and a vast quantity of loot. He has learned that a small group of officers, motivated by envy and ambition, have told the emperor that Belisarius plans to found his own kingdom in North Africa. Belisarius soon persuades Justinian in person that this is all lies and his loyalty is absolute. The emperor rewards him with a triumph, the victory parade with which for 1,000 years the Romans had celebrated their greatest conquests. It's the first triumph to be awarded to anyone but an emperor in 500 years.
Wow.
He is also...
Oh wow, I did not know that. Well, no better man than Belisarius, who went on to almost help take back all the lost lands that Rome lost. So, yeah, if anyone's worthy of a triumph, it's Belisarius.
Also awarded the title of consul, once the senior political office in the Roman Republic, long since reduced to an honorary title. Belisarius's loot, including much of what the Vandals had plundered from Rome, is paraded in front of the citizens of Constantinople and the emperor, along with his prisoners, including King Gelimer himself, who is heard to mutter words from the Old Testament. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity.
Yeah, triumphs are a little over the top, but, they're triumphs. They're kind of like they're just kind of meant to be, right?
Whether such events as these ever took place before, I am not able to say. The Vandal kingdom at the height of its wealth and military strength completely undone in so short a time by 5,000 men. For such was the number of horsemen who followed Belisarius and carried through the whole war against the Vandals. For whether this happened by chance or valor, one would justly marvel at it.
Certainly.
Known to history as the Vandalic War, Belisarius's campaign has reclaimed one of the Roman Empire's wealthiest provinces in just 6 months with minimal losses.
Oh my gosh, 6 months. The dude blitzed that. That is amazing. That's amazing. I'm sorry. I always lack the words whenever I turn on this camera and I try to speak. I just can't. But that's spectacular.
The Battle of Dara had proven his skill as a tactical commander. In North Africa, his victory comes through discipline and diplomacy, and a brilliantly successful Hearts and Minds campaign.
It's true, man. You're already seeing the tactical brilliance, and he uses so much. Not only does he use, the typical warfare of tactics and strategy, but, he also is campaigning for the hearts of people. He's using diplomacy. He's using, morality very right, framing himself as you're like, yeah, I agree with this guy morally, even if you're not Christian, you can still see, yeah, the guy seems very restrained, and yeah, just overall, he's using all kinds of stuff to benefit him and the Romans. and I'm catching that. Very pragmatic, you know, a very pragmatic man, from what I'm gathering.
But already it's clear there are those within the Empire who resent such success and seek his downfall. Belisarius will not have long to rest on his laurels. A murder in far-off Tuscany is about to lead to his most formidable challenge yet. The victim is Amalasuntha, daughter of Theodoric the Great. Her death means war between the Eastern Empire and the Goths. A war that will lead Belisarius to the gates of Rome itself.
Heck yeah.
Big thanks
And
to
we're done, and next time we're going back to Rome, baby! Awesome. I guess next time is where he gets back Rome, right? Very excited about that. Just overall, I think I've said everything I needed to say. I'll for the most part just close really quick. I just wanted, you know, I'm very excited for the next video. Really loving this series so far. And Belisarius is slowly climbing up the ranks of one of my favorite commanders, so we'll see how he finishes, but by the end, who knows, he might just make the top 5. So yeah, and also Total War. I need to play Total War. I wanted to play Total War Rome 2. I need to buy it. You know, I'm not used to playing on computers. I like consoles and whatnot, so it would be like my first. I don't know, I just don't like all the buttons. There's so much more to it. To me, just holding like a remote is just easier, but I don't know, I wanted to like get Total War Rome 2 or like something like that. But yeah, overall another great one, and I can't wait to watch, you know, part 3, in which we will next Thursday. So until then, everyone, goodbye, see you next time.